me read, stimulates the imagination, and imagination is also experience, and experience teacheth wisdom, and wisdom is integral in our growth process. Seen? So reading is fundamental. You got the fun in the physical, fun in the spiritual, fun emotional, but what about the mental? Fundamental, reading fundamental, baby, hear me. Fundamental, reading fundamental, baby, hear me. After several hours, they emerged from the gloom of the forest onto a rocky hillside. A panorama of hundreds of mountains with rounded tops covered in trees stretched endlessly into the distance. It was worth coming just to see this, thought Kemar. He smiled at O'Shane. Below them, not far down the slope, was lush vegetation. Sit quietly, and we might see a giant swallowtail butterfly from here, said Mr. Roach. The boys settled themselves on fallen tree trunks. Staring into the valley, they saw parrots and other birds and butterflies too distant to identify, but none of the endangered species. After 15 minutes, they became restless. We may as well have lunch here too. The boys didn't need to be told twice, soon finishing all their fried chicken and hard dough bread. As they were about to set off again, Kemar checked his pockets for Papa's knife, a Swiss Army explorer with a red handle. It had 2 blades, scissors, tweezers, screwdrivers, and other gadgets. Papa had said they might find it useful, and that Kemar was to look after it, because O'Shane was too careless. He couldn't have lost it. It must be in his backpack. He was about to take the bag off when a glint of light caught his eye. Tyrek was squinting at him through a magnifying glass, one of the gadgets on the knife. "Give me back the knife!" yelled Kemar. Anger welled up inside him. "Papa said me must look after it." Tyrek opened one of the blades and hacked at the log he was sitting on. "Come for it," Tyrek taunted. Then he leaped up and ran. Kemar dashed after him, his knapsack thumping at every step. "Come back here right now," bellowed Mr. Roach as the 2 boys dashed past. "Remember what I told you about sinkholes?" Kemar continued his chase, but Tyrek had disappeared. Kemar stopped running, unsure which way Tyrek had gone. He must be hiding somewhere in the undergrowth. "You want the knife?" Tyrek's voice came from behind him. "Here, catch!" The knife sailed above his head, and Kemar sprang into the air, making a grab for it. He missed. He didn't see where it dropped, but it couldn't be far. He turned around and parted the undergrowth, searching for the knife. His hand brushed against a nettle. As Mr. Roach had warned him, it stung worse than cowitch. But he had to find the knife. To lose Papa's knife would be to lose Papa's trust in him for years. He walked slowly, searching systematically, using a stick to part the vegetation. After a few anxious minutes, he glimpsed the red handle. Thankful, Kemar picked up the knife and put it into his pocket. He began to retrace his steps, but soon got confused. He saw where he had beaten the vegetation in his search for the knife, but nowhere else looked trampled. Leafy shrubs obstructed his view in every direction. "Tyrek! Tyrek!" he called, but there was no answer. "You hear me, Tyrek? When me get home, I'm going to deal with you good and proper." But Kemar was more vexed with himself than with Tyrek. Like an idiot, he had fallen for Tyrek's trick. If he had let him run off by himself, the little pest would be the only one in trouble. Now he was probably laughing at him. After walking a little farther, Kemar saw where the vegetation thinned out and hurried towards it. He must be near the clearing where they had stopped for lunch, but oddly, there was no sound of people talking. To his left was a big red birch. Had he been so busy chasing Tirik, perhaps he hadn't noticed it earlier. Then, just as he realized he was going in the wrong direction, the ground dropped away sharply, and his foot slipped on some loose stones. Kemar landed on his back and slid down the hill, dislodging more stones. Sharp rocks sliced his arms and tore his jeans. He crashed into a giant cotton tree and grabbed hold on one of its buttress roots to pull himself into a sitting position. He looked up at the spreading branches. What if a duppy was looking down at him? In spite of being in pain all over, he struggled to take off his t-shirt and put it on inside out. Hopefully, that would keep the duppy away. He certainly couldn't take off his jeans. He looked around where the stony slope ended. About 50 meters below, there was a dark hole. The warning about sinkholes echoed in his head. His heart thumped and sweat streamed down his face. He craned his neck to get a better look, then shrunk back feeling dizzy. He could have slid into the hole and fallen to his death. What to do now?